show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
You're listening to the House of Cards on Facebook, YouTube, and BigPatriotRadio.com. All licenses for music and content have been purchased by and for the express written consent of Big Patriot Radio Networks. All information, opinions, and topics are for entertainment purposes only and do not expressly represent the opinions of the show's host and or producer. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Introducing to you.
You're on House of Cards, live on Facebook and YouTube.
It's going down.
Locked and loaded with the truth.
And good evening, everybody. Once again, it is Beaufort County's House of Cards. Welcome in, everybody. It is Thursday, the 15th of May already. Man, it is flying by. This year's flying by. My name is Mike Covert. I'm your host and producer for tonight. We are coming to you live from inside the Big Patriot Radio's studios here in the great state of South Carolina. So we're glad to have you with us. Welcome to everybody watching on Facebook and YouTube, and to those listening from all around the world on BigPatriotRadio.com. And don't forget, BigPatriotRadio.com, 5 nights a week, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have blues, news, country pop, and classic rock, America's real music. But also 5 nights a week, we have podcasts. Monday nights, we have New America Movement from the upstate of South Carolina. David and Jordan Cox bringing their brand of entertainment and news with a conservative twist. Mondays at 7 and 9 p.m. on BigPatriotRadio.com. On Wednesdays at 8 and 9 p.m., Corey Allen and the Overton Report. He's here every Wednesday. You can also catch him on weekday mornings on WTMA Radio. That's AM, I believe it's 1290 out of Charleston. You can also catch him at WTMA.com. Thursday nights, yours truly, we're live right now on BigPatriotRadio.com. On Saturdays, it's Ann Ubellis and the Southern Sense Radio Show. Her podcast comes on at 7 o'clock, runs to about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the evening, somewhere around there. And then on Sundays, our good friend Andrew Southwick and the Culture Crossroads Show. That is on at 7 o'clock on BigPatriotRadio.com. Also on the BEK Television Network. You can catch Andrew Southwick there as well.
Introducing to you.
You're on House of Cards, live on Facebook and YouTube.
It's going down.
Locked and loaded with the truth.
You know, as always, it's important that we say this. And it's not that I'm a broken record. It's because we mean it. We want to thank all those folks who have been with us since day one. It's been a couple years, actually more than that now. I don't know how many shows are under our belt. I have to go back and count. But we really appreciate all of those who have been diehard viewers, listeners, participants ever since the beginning. Also, if this is your first time tonight joining in with us, glad to have you here. We appreciate that, and thank you for joining in. Don't forget, we would love to have you help support the show if you so feel inclined. You see running right down there along the screen. That is our both the Venmo page, and hey, if you don't want to do that, you can do stars. It's a whole lot cheaper. Go to Facebook, where you're watching right now, on the Big Patriot Radio or the Beaufort County House of Cards page on Facebook. Like the page, follow us, and donate stars. We're trying to reach 4,000 stars for tonight. We tried 2,000 for a while, started nailing that. Now we're at 4,000. See if we can do 4,000 stars every Thursday night. But again, we appreciate each and every one of you that have participated and continue to make this show possible. Let's see here. Run down. Let's see. The number one song last week. I believe this is a new one in our top spot. Limp Bizkit in the spot with Goodbye. That was the number one song requested on BigPatriotRadio.com. Number one listening cities tied was Beaufort and Greenwood, South Carolina, up there just, I guess that's south of Greenville. And Bluffton, Hilton Head, and Florence, South Carolina, all tied, rounding out the top 5 for another big week right here on BigPatriotRadio.com.
Bringing you the best selection of hits for your listening pleasure.
Yeah, so let's get into it.
BigPatriotRadio.com.
Yeah, don't forget, we have a really big show for you tonight, something that's been worked on for quite a while. Aside from this monologue and a few quips here and there, we're gonna go do a deep dive on something that we've been working on for a while. It's a huge story, huge story. It began almost, I guess, a decade ago. We're gonna release all the pertinent information that was really, in our opinion, it was kept from the public. Even if you had put in FOIAs and stuff like that, they were redacted and withheld, and it was a big charade, if you will. But now we have it all, and we're going to share all that with you. We want to hear from you. Don't forget, you can type along in your comment section of whatever YouTube or Facebook or whatever you're watching us on. Type away, send us a message. We love to hear from you. And if we can, we'll read it on the air. And, first, before we get going with that story, this week, and we don't typically get into national politics or world politics because so many other people, that's all they talk about. And this is more geared for, local, state, or even regional, specifically. This week, however, almost entirely, the president, POTUS Trump, he has been making, the news has been about him entirely, making this whirlwind tour, around the Middle East, stopping in Saudi Arabia, went south to Qatar, jumped over to Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates today. It may have been somewhere else in between there. I'm not sure. But he's had a hell of a trip. And the dude, I mean, he has been signing. If you've been paying attention to this, it's unless my math is completely off. When you add in the second half of what I guess was Qatar has promised or said they would phase 2. After today's, I mean, I think it's like close to $3 trillion. I think, unless I've added wrong, worth of deals with all of them, all encompassing. I mean, you talk about being an overachiever. That is, I don't think anybody thought that was, going to come out of this. But everywhere he went, there was deals being signed from whether it was planes, trains, and automobiles or what have you. There were a lot of deals signed. And I thought about it. I was like, why didn't Biden ever do that? I went back and looked, and I couldn't find anywhere in his history that he went over to the Middle East, sat with crown prince, emirs, whatever king, whatever they are. I couldn't find anywhere where he sat with them. He looked at the belly of the beast, if you will, face to face. Why didn't he ever give them the rules of the game and then have them pay for the game? I don't know why he didn't do it, but he didn't do it. And at the same time, while Trump is over there doing that, he's also, or at least it appears, he's in the middle of the Ukraine, Russia, trying to broker a deal with that in some effect. And I think he had made a comment today or yesterday that no deal is going to happen unless he's sitting at the table. And sure enough, what was going on today was supposed to happen in Turkey. I mean, it fell apart. Putin didn't show up. Zelensky didn't show up. All these second string players showed up. And I mean, I'm sure they ate well, but that was it. At the same time, he's also, in some facets, still a go-between in the Israel and Hamas, the whole Gaza issue. Brought home an American, the last remaining alive American hostage. And that was this week. That was this week. So, you need to take a break, amigo. Take a break. I took a look, and I was fortunate enough, maybe not live, obviously, but went back and looked at some things. Every state dinner, or at least the gala leading up to it, that he had this week, including today's. And, Trump not only brought the big wheels of his cabinet, players in the administration that needed to be there, but he brought American business leaders there as well, among others. Big name journalists were there. How about the guy? I guess he was a CEO, chairman, CEO, president, whatever, of Boeing. He was there. Just this week, Trump says, he comes out and says, well, I'm not too happy with Boeing. I mean, called him out by name because they're so far behind on delivering Air Force One. But he brings the guy with him and, somewhat mediates the signing of a couple $100 billion of new plane deals in Qatar and in the United Arab Emirates. Yeah, I'm pissed off at him. I'm not happy with him, he said. I'm not happy at all. But I'm going to bring him along with me, and we're going to sign a couple $100 billion worth of planes for them to build. I mean, how is that for doing the right thing? Meanwhile, I mean, how is that for being a businessman? I mean, that's quintessential. And not to mention being the leader of the free damn world. I mean, that's amazing. At the same time, he had a $400 million, big heavy jumbo jet offered to the Department of Defense for free for Air Force One while Boeing is sucking wind on deliverables. Okay, let's get that straight. It wasn't offered to him. It's offered to the Department of Defense for free. Just got to have, take a year or so to get I guess a year to get the security upgrades. But anyway, you're going to sign a couple $100 billion worth of deals for the people who can't make your plane that you've ordered, years ago, but you're going to get them hooked up. At the same time, the Department of Defense is going to get a plane to carry your ass around in. I don't know. It just seems like, could anybody else have pulled that off? I don't know. I don't know if they could have. But, at the same time, while that's going on, the Democrat Party and when I say the Democrat Party, I'm speaking of on the national level, okay? The talking heads, the pundits of the Democrat Party. They are continuing, if not ramping it up, belly aching and complaining, making up these fake scenarios. They continue to push their party towards what I call the abyss of liberalism, as it's quite apparent. I mean, even some left-wing media outlets are beginning to report this, not just conservative outlets, but left-wing outlets are reporting that they're pushing their party towards the far left, out of the Democrat style of politics into full-fledged liberalism. And folks, it is quite apparent. It is quite apparent. I'd love to hear what you have to say. AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, runs that party. That's period. She's pissed on the heels. It's like a little poodle dog, little teeny little teacup. Went over and took a big whiz on Chuck Schumer's feet, Nancy Pelosi's heels, and the stomach of Jerry Nadler. The Democrat Party used to be They call themselves the party of the worker or the party of the people. Something along those lines, something noble, at least in history. Yes, I know at time, and many people agree they were the party of slavery, and that is true. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. Anyway, none of that anymore. They're not the party of the worker. They're not the party of the people. They're the party of the illegal immigrant. They're the party of the foreign gang society. They're the party of the cartel. They're the party of the Antifa BLM movement. That's what it is to be Democrat now, it seems. When you've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez running the show along with Ilhan Omar, Ariana, or whatever her name is, Presley, who is she is such a joke. I'm so embarrassed for the people of Massachusetts, wherever she comes from, whatever planet. It's really sad, but we've seen it affect things, or let me ask you, have we seen it affect things here locally? When you sit back and look at that, I don't know. I think, statewide, I would say yes. We that kind of movement has begun statewide here in South Carolina. Here, at least where I live and where the majority of our listeners live, locally, I don't think so. I'm not sure, but I don't think so. Now, if you just go up the road 90 minutes to Charleston and down the road 20 minutes to Savannah, hell yes. It has that type of liberalism mentality. The party of AOC has definitely taken a grasp, taken a hold. Rayleigh Creative, hey, welcome in tonight, says AOC is in charge of that party because I'm sure she wants to run for the White House, which is scary. That is scary. That is scary. And I would not, that is not a far-fetched comment. That is absolutely, I could see that being in her wheelhouse of things to do, to put on the list. That is very, very scary. Several years ago, I would have said someone like her that would have never have happened. I still have faith in the American people that more than 50% of us will never let that happen, because that would be, I can't even put that into words. If someone like AOC, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Presley, what's the other lip smacker? I can't. I don't pay attention. Someone like the guy from California that was having an affair with the Chinese spy, whatever his name is. I mean, people like that. That is extremely far left liberalism, and that's dangerous. Someone like a Schumer, we all know what he is. That's bad enough, but Anyway, life goes on. Thanks, Rayleigh Creative, for checking in with us. Life does go on, and we got to move forward. I continue to predict, and I've said this for a while, that they are going to continue to implode. If you look at what look at what happens in the Democrat Party on a constant basis, they are imploding, in my opinion. Their media outlets are failing on them. They have something has happened where they've started to wise up. Yes, you still have idiots out there that push the AOC and the crew, or whatever her group is, the flock, push their narrative, and they'll always be there. But the main center left, some of those have started to come around and are starting to back out of that because they see that being a dangerous spot. And what I mean by continue to implode, we'll just look at the insidious events that have been taking place in New Jersey and Newark as of late. The mayor of Newark, as an example, was in court today for his arrest of last Friday, I believe it was, at an ICE detention facility there in Newark. Today was some kind of like an evidentiary hearing was very quick. Afterwards, the judge said to the mayor that, hey, bro, before you go, you need to be processed by the U.S. Marshals. And he said, what are you talking about? I got processed last Friday. And the judge, I believe it was a she said, I understand, but you didn't get processed by the Marshals. That's what we need to do today. Well, he got pissed, to be quite honest about it. He didn't like that, but he went ahead and did it, got outside and told the reporters that, sorry, I'm late for this press conference. But the federal government is trying to make an example out of me, he says. Basically, he said, I should have never have been requested or demanded to have my fingerprints and mugshot taken the first time, much less this second time. So the federal government is trying to make a mockery out of me. And, this is all about me. If that had been myself, or, I dare say any of you watching, that we would have had, we had to have done the same thing as well. Obviously, we wouldn't have been having a press conference to complain, whine, and bitch about it. But that's what pays for clicks. So, I guess it's not far-fetched to say, and this may be a cliche, but I guess he feels like he is above the law. We've had people here locally on county or city governments that feel like they're above the law. We investigate people all the time that continue to feel like they are above the law. This Newark mayor, I suppose, feels like he is above the law. Now, let's go back just for a second. Wasn't Donald Trump fingerprinted and mugshot taken? Yes. Why? Yes, he was, and it was. Did he act like a 2-year-old whiny little smart-ass kid about it? No, I don't think he did. Anyway, love to hear from you in the comment section about all of this kind of stuff. It does, to me personally, it clogs up a lot of what we do. But still like to hear from you. Like to really hear what you think of the job President Trump is doing thus far, especially this week with these incredible trade deals that he has made all over the Middle East. And when somebody says, show me the money, Don just did that.
Everything that rocks is right here. Right here.
Let's rock.
With Big Patriot Radio.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right, coming up on 7:30 here on BigPatriotRadio.com in Beaufort County's House of Cards. So let's dive into tonight's subject. You saw the cute little thing on Facebook, the Beaufort County land game or the Shenanigan Land Games. And of course, tonight's show is titled "The Story of Bostick Circle." Drama shows itself behind closed doors. Before we get too deep into that, I want to thank you to the researchers that were involved in this, to everybody, all of those researchers out there who don't get near enough notoriety for the work that is done to be able to put all this stuff on to help me out. You know who you are. And again, some folks have actually asked me on the street, hey, how come you never mention, thank you, Jane America and Jane Doe and John Doe and John America and so on. Well, because that you don't do that. That's not cool. If they were paid, part of staff kind of thing, I mean, that's one thing, and probably then I still wouldn't do it. But because they're not in it to get their name on over the airways. They're not doing this for that. They believe in things, and I believe in them. And I greatly appreciate you for doing what you do, and you know who you are. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. All right, so what we're going to talk about, and we've got prepared, I got prepared stuff for this. And Bostick Circle is a parcel, or is a street rather, in the, I think it's called Battery Point area of the city of Beaufort. A portion of it is on Battery Creek. Very nice homes. Very nice homes. Know some people that live in there, past and current. And, in government, as in life, everything has a beginning. So where did this begin? The purchase of number 1, Bostick Circle, lot 247, in this Battery Point community, had a beginning. And we're going to talk about the beginning, and then the end is where we are today, which is really not the end, but it is in the end of the story as we know it. We now have, as I said earlier, this has been going on for about a decade or so. We only are able to do this now because, previously up until now, and I apologize for having to go back to my notes here, but I don't want to get anything incorrect. Many of the things that were asked about it were heavily redacted in FOIA, or they just were never turned in. People telling non-truths, if saying anything. So it was this big cloud. The only reason we have all this now, because the county, after wasting 6 years or so, or a little more, and a ton of taxpayer money on this, they wasted the money on a protracted and completely unnecessary legal battle to prevent the disclosure of all this stuff I'm going to tell you about. It was ultimately ordered by the Court of Appeals to release them unredacted. Well, you can imagine that caused the proverbial shit to hit the fan. So there are some questions that you need to know about. And remember, this is a piece of property, a building lot in a community, number 1, Bostick Circle, that the county was buying. Residential building lot in a residential community that your tax dollars were going to buy. There are like 10 questions that need to be thought about during this conversation. Number 1, why did Beaufort County spend so much taxpayer money fighting for 6 years to keep these emails and documents out of the public eye? Why? Number 2, the purchase, listing, and price history, including some assessments of number 1, Bostick Circle itself. What are they? Questions about the disincentives to buying that particular lot. Here's a story stealer. The lot was, as I remember, unbuildable. It was a junk lot. It was a waste lot. It was a corner lot that water drained into. It was not worth a damn, so to speak. Number 4, the question of the failure to not only alert the resident council representative as to the purchase plan, but then lying about it when confronted. Well, who was that? Well, during my term on council, and before that, it was Brian Flewelling, who happened to live in the same community, and they didn't notify. There was no gratis. There was no professional courtesy. They wanted to keep him in the dark. The attorneys disregarded their own cautions and advice of themselves and fellow attorneys. Questions such as, what about the bypassing of the county ordinance controlling the purchase and sale of real property by the interim acting administrator, who was Josh Gruber, county attorney, which was Tom Kevaney, and county employees? You could list them all, okay, that are involved. In other words, what was the rule? What was the law regarding how the interim county administrator, acting county administrator, can they just go buy property, real property? Well, the answer to that is no. We'll see if in our exposure here, I'll let you know that even the county attorney, Tom Kevaney, who it's no secret that there's no love loss here on myriad of levels, he even insinuates several times, whoa, pump the brakes here. He was leading into that, let's stop, let's slow this train down. Number 7, the astounding failure of the interim county administrator, Josh Gruber, county attorney, Tom Kevaney, and some county employees to even acknowledge this ordinance existed or to ever notify county council. There's an ordinance? Well, I didn't know anything about it, some of them said. Questions such as the tangled involvement and relationship of the realtor, and we'll tell you who that is, to number 1 Bostick Circle. And did they actually own it themselves at one time? Oh, the ingredients of this pie just got super sticky. The number of checks and balances in this real estate purchase completely ignored. There are checks and balances when you buy and sell pieces of property, real property, you and me. But when a government entity, a body politic, a municipality, or a county is involved, or state, the checks and balances, they are supposed to like double or triple. They're completely ignored in Beaufort County, it seems. And number 10, the records that were finally provided do not reflect receipt of an appraisal prior to said employee land purchase. Again, when governments buy real property, the checks and balances are very, very pronounced, or at least they're supposed to be. This one, number 1 Bostick Circle, and one of those checks and balances is appraisals, multiple appraisals. We used to do this when I was on county council. We would order them all the time. This one does not reflect receipt of an appraisal prior to the interim county administrator, Josh Gruber, making the land purchase. So let's dig a little deeper. So the county's purchase of number 1 Bostick Circle began in 2014, November 18th, 2014. Put that on your timeline. Disabilities and Special Needs Board meeting of that day. Members therein, and I was not on council at this time, members therein discussed buying 4 DSN homes, that's disabilities and special needs, to replace the aging Port Royal community residence. Now, for those of you not aware of this, over in Port Royal, there was this very, very large property for being in downtown Port Royal. It had a big old house on it, and it was a DSN day. I'll call it a day center, or it really wasn't a day center because they lived there, but it was a group home. I guess is a way to phrase it. Adult consumers in the disabilities and special needs arena. Okay. It was getting old. There was, it was falling apart really. I mean, it needed to have major work. So the members of this board, the DSN board, discussed, hey, maybe we should buy 4 houses to replace this one. That's how big it was. At the time, one of the DSN directors, Mitzi Wagner, had said, quote, one of her, Mitzi Wagner, and Gary Kubik's priorities. Gary Kubik was the county administrator who eventually retired, and Josh Gruber took over as interim. Priorities is to replace the Port Royal community residence. She said, when you have 15 individuals in one facility, it is no longer a home. It is an institution. DSN tries in every way to make home non-institutional. Understood. Gary Kubik visited the residence. His comment was one of his priorities in the next 2 years was to find a replacement for the residence as it was too crowded. An idea is to acquire 4 homes to house individuals who live at the Port Royal DSN house residence and to hire additional staff to work in homes so housing would not be considered institutionalized. I have no problem with that. I am not for institutionalizing people. I think the DSN housing program is an admirable one. No question. No problems there. So, but I want you to, let's fast forward to March 2017. Ballinger Realty over in Beaufort is contracted by Beaufort County to find the 4 home sites. Their agent, this is the agent from Ballinger Realty, name is Deborah Regez. I apologize if I'm butchering that. She initially owned number 1 Bostick Circle, located in Battery Point subdivision within the city limits of Beaufort. A thorough review of the county's real estate records confirmed that Regez and her husband purchased the horrible piece of property in January 29th, 2004 for $50,000. That was January 29, 2004. It was a trash lot then. It was a trash lot in October 2006 where they listed it for sale for $89,000. It sat on the market for almost 3 years. Granted, this is now we're deep in the middle of the housing tank. Okay. Numerous price deductions ad nauseum. And then in 2009, in September, it was removed from the multiple listing service. 4 years later, now we're in November 10th, 2013, they relisted it, this time for the same $50,000 that they paid for, and it sat there unsold for another 4 years. So, emails that we have, and I'll be glad to show you, should you want, it's all public record now. These emails, which correspond to the public record, Regez finally secured a buyer. However, she had to apply for a permit March 7th of 2017 prior to the sale. The permit was to fill the lot to grade. So again, this is a corner. It's a corner lot. The lot drained into itself. So, I mean, it held water. It was like a pond. It's nasty. They had part of to sell it. The city made her get a permit to fill it up with dirt to grade. Grade meaning, street level. The city says that it had a notable defect in that it floods and will require an excess of fill. Now, documents dating back to 2008 show that Regez was notified of this defect by the Battery Point HOA. So she bought it, could never sell it, had a huge price, lowered it, took it off the market, put it back on, tried to get rid of it for what they paid for it, had somebody on the hook, but she had to go get a permit to fill the lot up to make it sellable. The permit was approved by the city's drainage engineer. Shortly thereafter, Regez finally sold number 1 Bostick Circle for $30,000. March 24th, 2017, a net loss of $20,000. 7 months later, the new owners put it back on the market now for $37,000. Why did they do that? Why 7 months? Why do they think that it gained $17,000 in equity? Well, let's keep going. We know from subsequent reporting by the Island Packet. Now, this is when I was on county council, and this was becoming a hot topic. We know from subsequent reporting by the Island Package, statements from Battery Point residents, a letter from their Architectural Review Committee, and emails between Reges and the city of Beaufort that prior to the March 20th, I believe, 24th, 2017 sale of number 1 Bostick Circle, there was a drainage problem. Hence why they told her she had to get a permit to get it filled. All right. So is that why the new buyers, well, let me rephrase it. Is that why Reges is that why it sat on the market unsold for over 10 years when Reges owned it? Rayleigh Creative says, but the city let the county buy it without those restrictions. Don't give away my thunder yet. Hang in there. So is that why the new buyers listed the property only a few months after purchasing it? And knowing about the lot's defect, why was Reges, at least according to all these documents right here, why was Reges so insistent that the county purchase this lot, this particular lot and property? Now, some are saying, wait a minute, she sold it to somebody and now they are trying to sell it 7 months later. They had to have a realtor, didn't they? Did anyone else involved in this whole scenario with this purchase? Nobody knew about this stuff at the time. Okay, let me just make sure you're aware that nobody knew about this. Things were being asked, but nobody knew about this. So, did anyone else involved in this know about the drainage issue? The seriousness of the drainage issue? We know the permit and other information about the lot needing fill were forwarded by Reges to the contracted home builder and to the then DSN director, Bill Love, on December 15th, 2017. And that a mere 4 months later, Reges emailed them again saying, quote, she doesn't own this now. This is the listing for one MLS listing for 1 Bostick Circle. This seems to be the top choice. So let's recap. Reges bought the property for 50 grand, tried to sell it. A decade went by, couldn't sell it, took it off, put it back on, lowered the property, tried to break even, ended up losing 20 grand. The new people that bought it 7 months later, they want to sell it for $37,000, a $17,000 profit. Who was the realtor being involved now? Deb Reges. She emailed the county and DSN department. This is the MLS listing for 1 Bostick Circle. This seems to be the top choice. Seems a little too close to the chest. Anyway, do you think that the residents of Battery Point knew about all this? Absolutely not. Not at this time. So why were they being kept in the dark about the county's plans for a group home in their community? All right. Yes, I will. Absolutely. I remember having these conversations. There are those people, the NIMBYs, NIMBY, not in my backyard. I don't want to have a disabled home, with 5 people living in my neighborhood. Well, I've had those conversations with those myopic minded people. And I can tell you there's actually 2 near me. One in Lawton Station. The house looks better than some in that neighborhood. It is a perfect neighbor. I've never had one conversation with someone who was upset about it. None. Anyway, according to these emails that we have, number 1, on December 21st, 2017, Reges says 1 Bostick Circle's asking price is $37,000. There is a suggestion on this email trail from Bill Love, the DSN director, to offer $34,000. County attorney Tom Keveney speaks up and asks about HOA fees for the Battery Point community. I remember the conversation, and that was brought up. I don't know who, me or Brian Flewelling, I don't know who, but that was brought up. And Tom Keveney did the right thing, saying, hey, I understand 34, ask 34 for 37 asking price, but what about the HOA fees? Number two, on December 21st, 2017, same day, Keveney says, quote, since the contract value is above $10,000, Josh or his designee will need to sign. Josh meaning Josh Gruber, interim county administrator. On the same day, December 21st, 2017, the purchasing director, Dave Asleep at the Wheel Thomas, says, quote, the only issue that I see is the hold harmless clause. We are not allowed by South Carolina law to indemnify anyone, close quotes. Legitimate. Next email on January 2nd, 2018, Regez, the realtor, emails Tom Keveney, county attorney, says, quote, since this is a private party selling this lot, I do not think we need to be concerned with the confidentiality of it being a county purchase. A county purchase. Keveney replied, Deb, maybe not. I think a seller is going to wonder why a public entity wants to buy a residential lot in a private community, but I may be wrong. That's a really, I got to give kudos where kudos is due to Tom Keveney for saying that the way he did when this realtor is saying, since this is a private party, I'm representing them, that owns the property that I sold to them. This private property is selling this lot. We don't need to make it a public thing that the county is buying it. Even though, and this is my added prefuncture, it's your tax dollars doing it. Regis says we don't need to make this a big deal and make it all public. Keveney does say, yeah, maybe not, but I think a seller's going to want to, wonder why a public entity wants to buy a residential lot in a private community. Maybe I'm wrong. I understand. So subsequently, in January of 2018, Regez and Keveney had an email exchange as to the suitability of a group home in and of itself in Battery Point. Here's where this gets really funky, if it's not funky enough. This was in regard to whether there were any restrictions due to the HOA covenants and architectural requirements. Two questions came about at that juncture. Number one of the sitting councilmen, Brian Flewelling, who lived in Battery Point, was never reached out to. Is that proper English? Reached out? Yes. He was never reached out to by Keveney or anyone in the county attorney's office. Why? That makes absolutely no sense. Number two, did Regez disclose at this juncture to anyone at the county that she had owned one Bostick Circle for years and therefore would be in the best position to know Battery Point's rules and restrictions? Did she disclose that? We ask you, Deb Regez, did you disclose to Tom Keveney or Josh Gruber or the clerk to the administration? Did you tell them that you used to own this property and you would know the R&R, rules and restrictions, better than anybody? Into January 2018, Keveney sent a group email to Deb Regez, Bill Love, and the builder saying this: I asked TAB, which is, that's not TAB as we know the name today. That stands for Thomas Bindle, who was the attorney for Howell, Gibson, and Hughes. I asked TAB to look in, I'm going to call him Bindle from here on. I asked Bindle to look into this property for us in more detail. The last thing I want the county to do is buy a piece of property on which we cannot construct a DSN home. Please see Bindle's comments below. I think we should follow his advice. From Bindle, the attorney, Tom, I've reviewed the CNR's covenants and restrictions, as well as the amendments thereto. It appears that both single-family dwellings and multifamily structures are allowed there. However, they don't specifically address group homes. Moving down, I don't believe this would be considered a single-family dwelling, nor do I believe that a single home occupied by unrelated individuals and managed and owned by a government would fit in with the definition of multifamily. The spirit of the covenants worries me a bit with respect to the relationship or respect to the association allowing a DSN group home. You see, I mean, and these are legitimate legal questions that only lawyers really get into. What is everything in the legal world has to have a definition. Okay. If you want to talk about stormwater, you have to define in the context, what is stormwater? What does that mean in any legal battle? So the thing here is, what are they talking? Is it a single family home? Have they identified what that means? Common sense would say no, because it's not a single family. Is it a multi-family home? Well, if you look at the definitions of multifamily throughout the county's ordinances, this would not fit that spirit of the county ordinance. Not a multifamily. Is it a group home? Well, this is a group of individuals on a common cause of disability and special needs that are living together in a protected atmosphere to give them a better and equal shot at a positive life. So you have two attorneys talking about, is this considered a group home? Is it not? Obviously, there's no definition anywhere. So he goes on to say, thus, I would have Deborah contact the chair of the architectural committee to have a group home approved by both the committee and the board before moving forward. Absolutely good cover from the legal entity. Let's have Deborah contact that chair and, talk about this group home and have it approved. Now, later that same day, this is January 2018, Monica Spells, haven't heard that name in a while, have you? She was the former assistant county administrator. She told Tom Keaveney, Deb Regez, the procurement director, Dave Thomas, Bill Love, Josh Gruber, Wanda Mays, who is with DSN, and the builder. Monica Spells says this, quote, my understanding is that these are not group homes and that when negotiating homes for DSN in Pinecrest and Lawton Station, we were told that attempts to impede them or initiate an approval process were unlawful. I have added our DSN deputy director who has managed our residential program and Josh to determine their recollection. We'll get to that recollection here. But my comment to Monica Spells is I would strongly say, show me the money, because to say that we were told that attempts to impede them or initiate an approval process were unlawful, I think that is total gibberish. I think that is total hogwash. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I think she's full of shit. In his reply, Bender said to all, I agree that it would be unlawful for any subdivision to withhold any approvals of plans submitted on the basis that it is a DSN home. That's a far cry from getting a group home approved. He went right to the end of its being, because you're DSN, you're not allowed. I mean, he went right for the jugular. He went from A to Z. There's 24 others that you got to go through, so to speak. I would suggest that if plans have already been drawn, we reach out prior to closing to have the plans approved and make the committee members aware of the intended use of the home. I've spoke to Josh and agree that we should not set a precedent from backing down from any subdivision that denies our request based on discriminatory factors. Now, all of a sudden, this attorney has primarily grown a set of balls and wants to take on any subdivision that says, let's get approvals. I think that is the obligatory pompousness of this lawyer. He does say, however, I believe that it may be a good idea to disclose, not that we are even legally obligated to do so, close parent, the intended use of the home. Perhaps we should know what issues, if any, we may have to deal with moving forward. What I see in his conversations that we've talked to on all different days is that he has gone from the right side to the bad side, back to the legal side, then to having these huge balls, and now backing down. That is how someone who plays the game, I don't want to lose my contract. I don't want to lose my job. I got to look out for the guy who's paying me. That's how you play that game, in my opinion. All right. So subsequent emails to all this, there was no disclosure by the attorneys or anyone else to Battery Points committees, nor to Councilman Flewelling, all of whom were kept in the dark about the actual purchase of the property, which took place. Now it took place February 3rd, 2018. The county bought number 1 Bostick Circle for the $34,000 that Bill Love suggested in lieu of the $37,000 that the new owners who bought it from the realtor who sold it for in the first place. I remember this time period, and we did not know this had happened. How come you don't know? Because the county council or the committee, it was never brought to us to sign off on. That's right. Josh Gruber did not have the authority, even though he thinks he did, and some may have thought then, and maybe still do, thinks he does or did. He's not an employee there. Have the authority to make the purchase. He did not. It is written in ordinance, plain as day, and I'll show it to you, that he can't buy real property without county council. So thereafter, the county received a letter. Now we're going to go all the way to September. That's 7 months later. 7 months later, Beaufort County gets a letter from the chairman of the Battery Points Architectural Review Committee, James Pickard at the time, detailing the reasons for rejecting the county's application to build a group home on 1 Bostick Circle. And I remember this, and we get this and we're going, what the fuck? Were they building a home there? We didn't know. Little did we know, county had already bought it. They bought it 7 months ago. Little did we know that the Office of Facilities was getting involved with their own architect or site manager for doing all this. Anyway, the problems that James Pickard released was that the drainage problem, the proposed design not meeting their standard, the drawing of the house, and the lack of information about the occupancy. A request that had been ignored according to the letter. But even after receipt of the letter, Regez was still advocating the county purchase this particular lot. They get the letter that says, we're going to fail this because of this, this, and this. And what is the intended use? Beaufort County Department of Disabilities and Special Needs. And they get ignored. So it was during this time that Gruber was vying for the county administrator position. Remember that? If you were here for a while, he was the interim and he was vying for the job. We had our own backdoor dealings going on, several of us trying to do this the right way. And you had people like the chairman and the vice chairman and some others that were trying to slide him in under the radar and just give him the job. Specifically, and Gruber did not have the votes. You know, it takes six. It takes six to do anything. He didn't have six. Specifically, who did not want Gruber as county administrator, Brian Flewelling, Mike Covert, Rick Caporal, Steve Phobes, and there are two others that I didn't write down. We were outspoken about Gruber's unsuitability for the job. Gruber subsequently took a position with the town of Hilton Head. Lo and behold, the Bostick Circle purchase was really not discovered in totality, conveniently, until after he left. Now, this got reviewed after he left, and the conversation came up about responsibility and damages, possible charges. Well, the county attorney's office, who, by the way, was lobbying hard for Gruber to have that job, who, after I had shut him down in public, the county attorney made it his goal to have me, either kicked off council or whatever, and he failed. That's a whole other story. Anyway, the county attorney's office says Gruber improperly obtained number one Bostick Circle, but they admitted that he did it improperly. He did not follow protocol. He did not follow county standard operating procedure. He did not follow county law. He did not follow the ordinance. But since he was already gone, there was no way to punish him. So was this purchase by Gruber unlawful? Because while Beaufort County Code of Ordinances allow the county administrator to approve purchases up to $50,000, which I hope, by God, that has changed by now, and I think it has, there is a stipulation in this ordinance that they must receive prior approval from council for the purchase or sale of real property. It's right here in black and white. That approval never happened. Therefore, it was an unauthorized purchase by Gruber that Tom Keaveney admitted was unapproved. When it finally got revealed, Brian Flewelling, county councilman, whose district is home to Battery Point, said he was blindsided in July when a subdivision resident asked him what the county was building at the site. Flewelling had said he contacted Gruber, who confirmed the purchase, and according to Flewelling, insisted that he had the authority to execute the deal even after being challenged by the councilman. Now, Brian Flewelling, love him like a brother, he knows when it comes to natural resources and public facilities, he knows his shit. He was on county council long enough that, he knows his shit. He was, we would not agree 100% of the time, but 90% of the time, if not more. But there was more often than not, I was like, well, he's right. I may be wrong, but he's right. I can tell you that. Quote, the short and long of it is that our employee bought a piece of property and never told us that he bought that property. He should have, but he didn't. That is Brian Flewelling's quote during the January 15th, 2019 county council meeting when Bostick Circle came up. So remember, again, let's look at those dates. September 5th. Let's see if I can find this again. September 5th is when the chair of the Architectural Review Committee sent a letter to the county indicating why. And it was a mere 30 days prior to that when we had no idea that Flewelling gets tripped up by a resident, a neighbor, saying, what are y'all doing over here? Flewelling continued, so the effect today is to try to comply with the state law by ratifying that action of our employee. That was his answer to, well, that wrong was done. The county attorney says, yeah, he did wrong, but he's gone, so there's nothing we can do. So why are you all January 15th, 2019 ratifying this? Brian Flewelling was professional enough to come forward to say, this is all what has happened, but we need to move forward and ratify the purchase complying with state law. That's what a professional does. After the meeting, he said he wanted to see the county divest of the property. When he was asked if he was opposed to a DSN home in Battery Point, Flewelling said, of course not, and said residents of that subdivision were good and welcoming people. He added that some residents would be opposed to the home no matter what, but that most of the complaints he heard stemmed from residents being blindsided. How often do we say, you can run, but you can't hide? Something going on lately, somebody tells or people tell lies that just snowball, and they keep going and they keep going and they keep going, and those lies get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until you can't get away from the snowball lie that's behind you. That is exactly what happened here. Couldn't get away from it. At that meeting, again, January 2019, Brian Flewelling and we were in the newspaper about this, we expressed concerns about the land's drainage and proximity to water. Battery Creek runs back through there. Flewelling called it a place where kids go to catch tadpoles, end quote, and worried about the safety of DSN residents and the liability the county would assume. York Glover, county councilman from St. Helena, suggested having county staff and engineers reevaluate the property, and if they deemed it usable, go ahead with construction of the home. Alice Howard and Paul Somerville both acknowledged problems and how the land was acquired, but both said they would support the project. So they knew, they knew how the land was acquired and it was wrong, but you got to go forward. Moving on, going back and reviewing these emails, recall what Kevany said about Gruber's authority to purchase the property. Dave Thomas, the head of procurement, replied to Kevany two ways. And these two are highly compensated people by Josh Gruber and the former county administrator, Gary Kubik. Just keep that in mind who they work for. December 21st, 2017, Kevany said, since the contract value is above $10,000, Josh or his designee will need to sign. On December 21st, 2017, same time, Dave Thomas says the only issue is about the hold harmless clause. So are we to believe that Kevany, who in his position as county attorney, knew or should have known that the county's ordinance for the purchase or sale of real property really did not know Gruber did not have the authority? Are we to believe that he knew he didn't have that authority, or was he looking the other way? Are we to believe that Gruber, also a licensed attorney, didn't know about it either? I mean, come on. You're an attorney. You worked in the county attorney's office at one time. Now you were the assistant county administrator. Now you're the interim county administrator. You don't know that you don't have authority to make a real property purchase without the advice and consent of the county council? What about Dave Thomas? This is the procurement guy, still there. Are we to believe that the head of procurement was clueless about this ordinance? Now, many will say, well, look what you've talked about in the last 3 years. That's right. Clueless is a dangerous word when it comes to this scoundrel bunch, because many times they are clueless. They've proven it many times for themselves. I don't need to prove it for them. Clueless is as clueless does. But when you consider the number of attorneys involved in this whole scenario, isn't it astonishing that there was so many attorneys involved and nobody? I mean, are we to believe that they all didn't know it, or were they all in this together? I mean, is it a quid pro quo? You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. This happens in Beaufort County more often. I mean, nobody's back should itch here. Let me put it that way. Okay. There's so much quid pro quo going on. Everybody should have a nice, comfortably scratched back. Anyway, moving forward. The Port Royal community residence eventually was sold, and how that worked out, that was the state, the General Assembly had to like sign off on that. It was sold, and we're going to do some more on this as time goes on because there's some conflicting things. But we do know that it was sold for $760,000. Interesting fact: it was sold to a company or an LLC called Ebb Tide something another. I don't know if it was Ebb Tide Ventures or Ebb Tide whatever. That's not the point. The point is who owns that. Well, it's owned by Port Royal town manager Van Willis and his now ex-wife Josephine Willis. Supposedly going to relocate their business, which was the Little Brown School, but they never did relocate it. Instead, they sold the property. And possibly split like a half acre of the property off and made. I mean, the money is, if this is true, and we're not there yet. The money is staggering. Who was the attorney in all this? Well, Tad Bindle. Interestingly enough. So looking at all of what do we have? What kind of receipts do we have? I think that's important to validate what all we're saying. So I'm glad that you asked. We have the contract award for Ballinger Realty. More than welcome to look at it. We have well, I forgot to mention this to you, the timeline of some things and other builders. So the county was the project manager, but here's what happened with the bill. September 28th, 2016, Gary Kubik signed an agreement or contract with D.R. Horton. Now, D.R. Horton couldn't make the ADA adjustments needed in the homes, so no further contact was made. Mark Sutton, who is the architect in charge, works for the county, looked at several. We have it in writing. Him and Bill Love looked at several lots. None were suitable. March and April of 2016, looked at lots in Shell Point because of the septic systems in Shell Point, not appropriate. April 28th, Deb Regez contracted to work with Mark Sutton. In May, they went and talked to Celadon over on Ladies Island after they had a conversation about the home and the intent. It was decided DSN population would not adjust well there. July 1st is when the state signed the proviso to sell the Port Royal residence. July 10th of 2016, I'm sorry, we're in 2017. The county worked with Deb Regez to begin looking at properties. They looked on Ladies Island and Overlook. Prefer no CC&Rs and septics, they said. July 24th, Dream Finders, another home builder, provided ADA requirements. They started a conversation in August with Live Oaks and Hutter. They went to the islands of Beaufort in August 15th. They responded, single-story homes were not allowed. They were all over the place. But in the back of her mind, Deb Regez had a perfect piece of property. She sold it for less than she bought it for, and then what was the commission on it? What other stuff do you have there, Beaufort County House of Cards? Well, we have the contract, the warranty and deed for the $50,000 purchase. I'm not going to mention those people's names. They were none the wiser, obviously. But why did they sell it? Would love to know that, but I'm not going to mention their name. That's really not. That's probably not proper right now. We have, let's see, we've got other stuff. Letters all over the place from engineers, architectural forms. Here's some emails from the county and Deb Regez. We have the application for the permit for the city of Beaufort to fill it in. Another permit to fill it in. It never got done. You want receipts? We get receipts, folks. We have them right here. We have emails from Deb Regez and the city of Beaufort Who do we have here? This is all about the permit for the filling in the property. Laborious emails over and over about this. One thing I have to say about the realtor, she was doing her job. She wanted to make this sale, and make this sale she did. We have emails from Tom Kevaney. You can see him right here, Tom Kevaney and Dave Thomas. There it is. There's more receipts brought for you. These are all emails, yada, yada, yada. You can see here, this is one that originally, if you got this FOIA, this, see where it says redact? That would have been total black, okay? That means that would have been redacted. Well, because of the Court of Appeals, now they have to show it. Well, what did it say? What did they want to redact so bad? Well, I'll be glad to read that to you. From Tom Bendel to Tom Kevaney, one lawyer to another, in January 2018, one Bostick Circle. Tom, I've received the CNRs, that's covenant restrictions, as well as the amendments. It appears that both single-family dwellings and multifamily structures are allowed. However, they do not specify group homes. So this is where they admit that there's no specificity about group homes. Then you throw in there Monica Spells making an alarm that if anybody tries to say anything about a group home, that we'll sue them. We'll sue them, which quite honestly, the county does. Well, I can't say does. I don't know about it anymore, but did do that all the time. I remember a former county administrator saying to me when I got on county council, laughing about talking about a lawsuit. And when I asked, what's so funny about it? I can remember that you'll learn real quick that people threaten to sue us and we'd love it because we have two things they don't have. What's that? We have more money and we have more time. We'll either bleed them dry, he told me, or we'll outlast them and they'll either move or die. That, excuse me, that, my friends, is not a friendly county. Anyhow, that is, that brings all that in a nutshell. So one Bostick Circle, let's put a little ribbon around this. One Bostick Circle, which, hey, this isn't the first time. I mean, just recently, you remember the piece of property that former county attorney or assistant county attorney, gosh, what was her name? Oh my God, my mind went blank. I want to say Brandy, but I'm probably wrong. Somebody, I can't remember her name. Somebody let me know. Whatever her name is. Anyway, one of the county attorneys was in the middle of a piece of property being purchased and then sold by her parents over here in Okatee, right on the Okatee River. This kind of thing happens, obviously, in Beaufort County. It happens all the time. Is it all quid pro quo? I don't know. Probably not. But is it improper? Abso-freaking-lutely. If you're involved in a deal and your family is involved in the same deal, you got to back out of it. If you purchase property and you sold it and then you're going to try to resell it and it involves public money, you've either got to back out of that or you've got to disclose your ass off. And as a realtor and somebody who has a realtor license, I can tell you that she's supposed to. All these realtors involved should have disclosed that to the nth degree. That should have been no questions asked. We know who owned it, who sold it, who bought it, who sold it, blah, 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 blah. And no, I in no way, shape, or form. Brittany Ward, thank you. That's who I was talking about. Thank you so much. What did I say? Brandy? Where did I get Brandy from? So this obviously is something that has been going on. Has it happened before the one Bostick Circle? I don't know, but I will venture to say yes. For those folks on county council that are watching this that may be new to it, I mean, do I expect you to do anything about it? Absolutely not. However, you need to know the skeletons and where they are. And is this happening under your watch right now? Hell, Brian Flewelling, county councilman, lived in the freaking neighborhood that this was going on, and nobody told him. How charismatically piss poor is that of the county attorney's office and the county administration to not at least say, hey, this is what we're doing? Forget about, what's your opinion. Forget that. Kiss my ass. No, they didn't even tell him. That's horrible. We cannot, in Beaufort County, continue to allow this type of behavior to keep going. I mean, it may be okay, and I'm not vouching for it for a small county like Allendale or Barnwell or somewhere where we were 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that may be the way it works. I don't know. But I'm telling you that right now, in a county that has 200,000 people, that's kicking at the heels of Charleston County in size, that is one of the most affluent counties in this state. And we've got this debauchery happening behind our county council's eyes now and previous. And it's not their fault. They wouldn't have any reason. Nobody told them. This is when people talk about, here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, when people talk about these backdoor deals, and you hear people like Joe Passaman or Larry McKellen or Stu Rodman or Paul Somerville, there's no backdoor deals. There's none of that going on. That is total and complete narcissistic talk, AKA horseshit. There are backroom deals going on. There absolutely is. There was backroom deals going on when you all wanted to get rid of Ashley Jacobs, and I said, I'm not going to be a part of this, and I'm going to go to the media about it. That was a backroom deal. It absolutely was a backroom deal. There's more backroom deals. We've exposed them, and we're going to continue to expose them, and we've got to get out of that mentality. Got to, and we've got to stop electing people who prescribe or subscribe to that mentality. We can't do that anymore. We can't. We've got a big story. Well, I'll tell you about that in a minute. All of these things that we're talking about here happen to be around land deals. Land deals, whether it's buying property or sheltering property in covenants and easements, is big dollars. When I was on county council, it was very commonplace for rural and critical lands, nothing against them, to have, whether it's the Coastal Conservation League, who I have a big problem with, and others, bring in a landowner that wants to have an easement put on their property. Huge money. And the property stays theirs, and they don't have to do anything. They can't do anything with it, but they just got a payday from it. More often than not, some of them are plantations. They weren't going to do anything anyway, but you just made some extra coin to get an easement put on there. And then some brought property to, it's an easy sell. Hey, I've got X amount of acres on the X river, and I'd like the county to buy it, to protect it. And if you don't, I'm thinking I may sell it to Pulte Homes or D.R. Horton. Oh my God. Holy shit. Let's buy that. Now, the program, I'm getting off on a tangent. The program itself, the reasoning is good, but these backdoor deals behind it, this kind of crap has got to stop. Got to stop. And it's only going to be when you've had enough, you, ladies and gentlemen, when you've had enough and you elect people that do the right thing. When you elect people that don't threaten you to raise your property taxes if you don't vote for a sales tax increase. When you stop voting for people who owe something or you owe them something. We got to get out of that.
Everything that
that rocks is right here. Right here.
That's rock.
With Big Patriot Radio.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right, we are coming up on 8:30. Want to thank everybody for tuning in again tonight. Try to help us reach the 4,000 stars mark. You've only got a couple, 4 minutes left. Go to Facebook and hit those stars, buy some stars, and help the show out. Like us on Facebook, like us on YouTube, tell your friends. Write down our Venmo. It's going across your screen right now. And help us out. Your generosity helps bringing in new stories and helps continue to make this whole thing tick. Gosh. And I want to thank you for your generosity. And I want to thank those researchers. And you know, a researcher is not an informant. An informant, you believe only a quarter of what they tell you. A researcher, that's something special. And I want to, again, I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you all. Tune in next week. What do we have in store? We're finishing up a story, hopefully it'll be done in time, on the economic development process in Beaufort County. You want to talk about backroom deals? Holy shit. We're going to talk about where your tax dollars are going with Beaufort County Economic Development Corporation. Talk about how much of them are going where, to who, to where, and are you getting ripped off? It is your money. You might be surprised, as always, as of the who, the where, the why, and when this is involved. That's going to blow your mind. It's probably going to piss you off just a little bit. And it's going to make you want to yell when you hear the story about the economic development issue in Beaufort County and what simple step could be taken to save a lot of money. Until then, everybody, be safe. And as always, good night.